Hey guys, David here with another review, and this time I'll be talking about Man of Steel, and yes, I'm wearing a Batman shirt. That'd be nice, to wear it as a joke, and also I don't have any Superman shirts, so I don't have any Superman shirts. But I figured it would be, a really fun joke. But I got to the theater, and there were other people who were doing the same, so I felt very unoriginal. But now we have Man of Steel, the much anticipated reboot after Superman Returns. And I say much anticipated considering that Christopher Nolan is producing and Zack Snyder is directing. The movie is essentially a reboot, so obviously it's an origin story. And the movie spends the first hour and a half explaining that origin story, but mostly in flashbacks and mostly in ways that you've never really seen in this way before. And if you don't know what Superman's origin story is, just look it up. So being the fact that we already know Superman's origin story very thoroughly after, several movies, after, a cartoon, a whole 10-season show, that dwelled just on that, I like it that they kind of briefed over the origin story mainly through flashbacks instead of going through a single narrative like the original 1978 Superman movie did. My complaint about that would be, however, that some of the things that they present here, that they make it what they're doing is that they're making it obvious that they're saying, look how different this is than what you've seen before in other Superman movies. Lois Lane is a little more edgy. She's actually, I don't want to say cussing up a storm, but I mean, when your main love interest says the words, "Are we done measuring dicks?" I was like, wow. So yeah, the movie makes it obvious that they're taking this in a whole different direction, trying to gear themselves away from the Richard Donner movies. I mean, if your Superman movie does not have the John Williams score, the John Williams theme, that in and of itself is a statement proclaiming that, yes, this is not your father's Superman. But like I was saying, my complaint about that would be is that some of these ideas that they present you with, they could have been done a little better. Most of them are cool. I mean, the new version of Krypton that you see at the beginning during the first, 10, 15, maybe 20, 25 minutes or so of the movie, I liked that. I liked how it was different than the typical very crystalline and clear and very white Krypton that you saw in the original movie. And I like that. I like the new life that they brought to Krypton, but I wish they would have explored it more because what we were shown made us very, at least for me, it made me very intrigued. But then we didn't get a full sense of how this world works. It was very quick. I mean, Krypton was already on its doom when you first see it. Jor-El is already saying, "Yeah, this place is doomed," and lo and behold, it explodes, and then you don't see any more of it, of this brand new Krypton. And another example would be is that later on down the line, I'm not sure this is so much of a spoiler because it's, during the first 30, 35 minutes of the movie, and you can see it coming from a mile away. And that is the typical scene where a guy is harassing a girl, Clark walks in, says, "Hey, don't do that or else you're going to have to leave." Dude is a complete douchebag. Clark obviously cannot do anything about it because people are watching, so he has to literally, he just has to walk away from it. But lo and behold, later on you see the dickhead walking out of the bar, and of course, right when you see him getting ready to leave, you can tell Clark did something to his ride, and sure enough, he impaled his truck on these telephone poles. So it seems like that where I'm like, okay, we've seen that before. You could have done it a little better. But as the movie goes on and Clark actually becomes Superman is where it picks itself up. Not in terms of pacing, because that's one of the things is that this movie, even though it had some jarring, scenes, and when I say jarring, I don't mean they're edited sloppy, but they just, like I said, they could have worked better. Despite that issue, this movie is kind of, it breezes on very quickly. I mean, if this is a 2.5 hour movie, if you don't feel a 2.5 hour movie, then the movie must be doing something right. But once he becomes Superman and the plot picks up and becomes what is supposedly different than the other Superman movies, is where it gets really interesting and where it doesn't suffer from those issues of things that could have been done better. Because from there on out, I was fully interested into how General Zod, this version of General Zod, fitted in, what's his plan, and it was somewhat compelling. And despite some of those issues that the script had, where it could have done some ideas a little better than it did, there's two other things that this movie really excelled at. One was that it used its cast very effectively. I was totally prepared for Russell Crowe to be in and out of the movie because he obviously played Jor-El, and we know what's going to happen with Jor-El as we do with Krypton. But he was brought back and more than I thought he would be. He was more in the movie than I thought he was ever going to be. And his character, his version of Jor-El was, again, the word of this review is compelling. I really liked seeing him on screen. Amy Adams was a good Lois Lane, and like I said, a little edgier than usual, but still, she played it very well. It wasn't the greatest, most compelling version of Lois Lane, but it would do. And other characters, like I said, they were good. Diane Lane as Ma Kent, or Martha, is it Martha? Martha Kent, yeah. And Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent. Well, he kind of plays Kevin Costner, the typical Kevin Costner type, father figure that you would expect. But it works. And like I said, he's more in the movie than I thought he would be. Not as much as Jor-El, but more than I was expecting him to be. But of course, we can't move on without speaking of the man of the hour, Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel. I thought it's a very interesting matter because I thought he was a really good Superman, but not a good but not great Clark Kent / Kal-El. I was hoping for a more tortured soul in Kal-El, trying to figure out where he came from. Why is he the person that he was? Because in the flashbacks, you see him as a kid, and you see this in the trailer. He looks very tormented when he asks his father, can I just keep pretending I'm your son? So I figured, he's going to be more of a tortured soul as he grows on. And so later on, where he finds the meaning of who he is and where he comes from, I figured he was going to be a little more emotional and, have this huge revelation blow up in his face. I didn't exactly feel that coming from him. But when he becomes Superman, he was, I felt like he was the animated, the Superman animated series from the 90s. I was getting that vibe from him when he was floating up in the air and he was speaking with that authoritative voice. He was a really good Superman, but just not a good enough Kal-El / Clark Kent. It's similar to the case that I had with Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. I thought Tobey Maguire was a better Peter Parker, but Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man. It's kind of the same thing going on here with Henry Cavill as Superman. And the second thing that this movie prevails at is that it is absolutely beautiful. I mean, say what you will about Zack Snyder, say what you will about Watchmen, Sucker Punch, but I think we can all universally agree that this guy knows visuals. And this movie's flat out no exception. I mean, every single angle, every piece of cinematography and visual effect, it's just beautiful to look at. And even though his camera work on some of the hand-to-hand combat stuff needs a little work, Zack Snyder can definitely bring you a climax. Holy shit, man. The climax for this movie is absolutely ridiculous, but in a great way. The last, literally 30, maybe 45 minutes of this movie absolutely rocks. It kicked Superman Returns' climax's ass, and it shows that, like I said, Zack Snyder can deliver on a climax, and definitely one that pays attention to the fact that you got two superhuman beings battling it out. It's obvious, it's obvious right from the get-go that there's going to be some wreckage. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and just say it. It's the kind of climax that I would a little bit watch the movie again. Not because of the movie as a whole, but because that climax was just that great. I was just watching it like that. I was a little kid again. I started making noises. Yeah. In the end, Man of Steel is probably one of the most beautiful movies that I've seen this year, and probably the most beautiful Superman movie that I've seen. But it's not the greatest Superman movie that we've ever received. It does, however, come in a close second because of the fact that, like I said, it has some great ideas that some of them could have been presented a little better, and some did work, and they managed to make the movie different than the other Superman movies and make itself its own. And again, that last 45 minutes of the movie just absolutely rocked. And I just thought that it was a really great way to kind of balance off some of the issues that were found in that first hour and a half. Even though, again, as a whole, the movie really paces very well, and I never felt the 2.5 hours. It's a really good take on the Man of Steel, but it's not great. I give Man of Steel an 8.7 out of 10, which is a B+. After being part of pop culture for over 75 years, Superman is catered warmly again on the big screen, but it's just not the most mind-blowing way that Superman has been portrayed. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos, follow me on Twitter, and go see the Man of Steel, and keep your eyes peeled for a little Easter egg that could potentially lead to a sequel. It's very quick, so be sure to keep an eye out. See you guys later.